Hi, my name is Flip Awesome Aguilera, and welcome to WEYT, the show where I find interesting people just like you and discover what's going on between their ears. Now, let's get to know one another. What's going on, everybody? This is Flip Aguilera, and thank you for spending your time with me. I want to start with the mantra of the day. So here we are. If a problem is fixable, if a situation is such that you can do something about it, then there is no need to worry. If it's not fixable, then there is no help in worrying. There is no benefit in worrying whatsoever. I got that one from reading the Twitter feed of the Dalai Lama. And, it hit me so much that I wrote it down. And now I'm here sharing it with you. My guest of the day, Craig Wadding. So I need to learn how to speak first. So I'm here
Yes.
with Craig Wadding, which is somebody I met through Career Karma, which is an app where they try to help people learn how to code, and they try to help you find jobs, and it's a whole bunch of cool stuff. And I'm pretty sure that Craig is an interesting person. Craig, thank you for spending your time with me,
Yeah, you're
and
welcome.
get into who you are, what you stand for, things like that. So who are you,
Okay.
Craig Wadding?
I am Craig, also known as Chris, sometimes Wadding. Also go by Greg sometimes. Boy, who am I, right? Currently, I work as a career coach for Career Karma, a community. They have an app and a website now that help people who want to break into tech. People that otherwise didn't think they'd ever have a chance to get a better job, in technology, whether it be cybersecurity or software engineering. Or in a nutshell, that application is a community for people to help one another, support one another. And also, if someone is looking at going to possibly like a online coding boot camp experience, passing on the experience to the next person to try to help them see how they can open doors to better themselves, more or less. And that network of people, the community, and the things you can discover there, it's just very helpful if it's a good fit for what you're looking for. So I currently work there part-time because I am myself attending an online coding boot camp for software engineering right now too. So it's been a part-time job for me to do while I'm doing school, and it works pretty hand in hand with what I'm already experiencing with school, because when I'm doing my job during the week, I'm also dealing with people who are in the same genre and are having a lot of the same issues that I have, personal, study habits, time management, struggles, learning how to learn, things like that. So it's currently what I'm working on. I have a background in a few other things. I was a locksmith for many years. A lot of people usually think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that does sound
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I was a locksmith for probably over 12 years. I worked for AT&T, for the phone company, for about 5 years. I worked for Time Warner for several years. I've done a couple other things, mostly all either technical related, customer service. I'm used to talking to people and dealing with customers and people and fixing problems and troubleshooting. Learning to do software engineering for me, I already had the interest in technology. I'm not afraid to meet new people and put myself out there, out of my comfort range, things like that. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I'm 47 years old. I'm the youngest of five. I watched my brothers and my sisters and my parents all my life, marriages and relationships and divorces and remarriages and all that stuff. And I guess somewhere along the way, I just kept my head down. But now I find myself, closing in on 50, and it has its pros and cons,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, we'll dig into
Um,
that a little bit. But we want to
yeah.
hear about all that
Mhm.
interesting stuff because, part of the premise of this show is that I believe, or I have the faith that each person, each individual has something to teach and has something of value to give to others. Like, not that I wouldn't love to interview celebrities, what I like to call the everyday heroes, the everyday people going through the everyday struggle. We have a lot more to teach each other if we just sit down and start to listen to all the
Mhm.
things that we have to each other or for each other. I will then begin with what this show stands for, which is WEYT, right? WEYT. So, out of all those things that you just mentioned, what's engaging your thoughts the most?
Probably with this process of me, at my age, trying to start over. all the things going on in the world right now with, quarantines and social distancing and things like that. Right now, a lot of people probably uncertainty of what's to come, own issues with, fighting my own demons with, procrastination, things to fight, internal things. Mine personally, what weighs on me a lot is I have a hard time saying no. And I find myself spending a lot of my free time, or even time that I've allocated for like studying for my own needs. I find myself diverted, my attention distracted when someone else asks for help. I don't know why. For some reason, I freely a lot of times will throw myself out there to help someone when I know I've got my own things that I need to be doing. And then I find myself kind of behind on my own stuff, but I can't really blame myself because I feel like, yeah, but I was helping somebody. So it's not like I was out gambling or
Yeah.
sleeping in or something that I didn't get my stuff done. It was because I diverted that energy and that attention to assist someone else. And for some reason, I don't know, I guess I just had an epiphany on this right now when you asked me, but I get more enjoyment helping someone else than helping myself. Does that sound weird? But that's what it feels like. It's like fulfilling my own goals and plans and things like that have their own rewards. But for some reason, if I help someone and I see their look on their face or hear it in their voice, they're like, "Oh man, thank you so much. Hey, you the man," or whatever. Like, I appreciate this so much, because part of it makes me feel like a phony,
Hmm.
to be honest.
Interesting.
Because that person, like, I can think of one guy I know right now. He's a really good kid. He's going through coding boot camp, and I've helped him a couple times just to figure out why he was stuck. And in his mind, I'm like the guru, right? Like, "Oh man, you got me past this. You must know everything." It's like the more compliments, instead of me just taking the compliments and the appreciation, I feel like, man, this guy doesn't understand. I'm not as good at this as he thinks I am, right? So I think a lot of it is just that imposter syndrome and that self-doubt and wanting to be good at something, but not really having a way to gauge how good you are at it yet, and not really knowing, am I worthy of giving advice for this? Do I really know enough to give advice? Am I making a fool of myself because other people that know more than me, if they hear me give advice, they realize I don't know as much as this other person I'm helping knows, right? I would say the main thing that I stress over every day, a lot of times, is, okay, I plan on getting more schoolwork done this week, and I didn't. What was I doing this week? Okay, I was working, but also I did this or I did that. I spent too much time with the community doing things. And not to say I don't think all that's important, but I feel like, kind of like the analogy of, if you're on an airplane and the mask drop from the
Yeah.
ceiling, you have to put it on yourself before you can help the person next to you, right? And it sounds selfish, but at the same time, it makes sense, because at the end of the day, if you can't physically function, you can't help anybody else. So it's not going to help me any to fail out of school
Yeah.
because I'm not getting my work done because I'm too busy trying to help everybody else get through school. It makes no sense. It's self-destructive. I've been reading some different books and things. I'm trying to figure it out. I have some kind of a weird martyr slash self-destructive personality or something, right? It's like, I enjoy the feeling of helping someone else be successful more than my own success or something. I don't know. Is that a thing?
What do you think of the concept that in other people succeeding, you are succeeding as well, because you were a part, you're a part of that. And I'm listening to the things that you're saying, and I'm writing down some notes.
Am I living vicariously through them? Like, here you go, little bird, get out there and out of the nest,
So,
and
what
like,
do you think of the concept that the stories that you tell yourself really,
mm,
are a big foundation for the way your life comes out? If you keep
mhm.
telling yourself that story, what are the probabilities that that's the way it's going to manifest itself for you?
Well, I mean, honestly, part of that was, like I said, an epiphany I just had, where I just was like, as I was trying to think of how to describe it, I just, all of a sudden, it hit me like, is this what I'm doing? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
A little self
So,
exploration
do
there,
you do
whatever.
any writing or anything when you have thoughts like that, where you can just,
Um, I have well, it's a notebook. I just call it a journal, but it's just a
yeah.
notebook,
Hmm.
where I started writing down certain things. I actually have a mentor that I meet with
Okay.
once a week, who's a software engineer. I actually met him through a guy he works with that I had met at a meetup. I've seen him at meetups since then, but we meet on Thursdays for about an hour. We have a Zoom meeting. We talk about We'll do some coding. He'll show me some stuff. I'll show him what I'm working on. He's been very helpful. He's been very supportive, kind of trying to help guide me of what can I be doing along this journey that's going to assist me when I get to the point where I want to, start interviewing for jobs, things like that. He's definitely a great person to have on my team, right? And he was telling me that he carries a notebook everywhere he goes. He just has these random thoughts or ideas, or whether it's about something he wants to do on the side for coding or things he wants to do for self-improvement. He makes notes. He said, because a lot of times you'll think of stuff and then later you get preoccupied and then it's just like smoke, it's gone.
Yeah.
He said, write down everything. He says, what's the worst that happens? You have a notebook full of scribble does it help you do anything?
No.
What's the worst that happens? You write it down and later it's like, that wasn't that good of an
So
idea.
here's a little something that I think I figured out over time. And I also have, I have the notebook.
Yeah.
And I schedule my time to write in my journal because I do have a journal. And it's a journal that I bought. I said it was on sale one time, and it's specifically a journal for men.
Mm-hmm.
And it asks you how you're feeling that day. It asks you what your intentions are for that day, which was the hour that you felt best. And then it'll ask you a prompt. It'll give you a question and you just start going off on that. That's one of the things I do is I actually schedule that in to my calendar, to my day, like it's work. It's like, that's a client I'm going to go see.
Mm-hmm.
The client I'm going to go see there is myself. But the
Yeah.
reason I do that is because the way that I understand that the brain works, people think of the brain as like a remembering machine, like it's a
Mm-hmm.
memory machine, but the brain is really suboptimal. It's not very good at remembering things.
Mm-hmm.
The way that it remembers things is that the brain likes to put patterns together.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get something out of your head and write it down, you can then read it again, which now reinforces the pattern. And if you keep doing that, that's when you start, as they say, fleshing something out. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
like when I started this idea, it started with, I just want to talk to people. I wrote that
Mm-hmm.
down. What do you want to say to people? And the more that you keep reinforcing that pattern,
Mm-hmm.
the better it gets. And if we think about just how biology works, like I started 10 years ago as a personal trainer. How does our body work? The way we get strong is to give it the pattern of more weight or more yoga, more whatever it is that your fitness philosophy is for you.
Mm-hmm.
The more that you do it, the more efficient you get at it. What do you think you can do to start to establish more organization around, your time that's for school? I also heard somebody else speak highly of you. So whatever you are doing is having an impact. It
Mm-hmm.
is having an impact. So don't stop doing it.
Yeah.
But you
Um,
need to figure out how to do it more purposefully during the time that you set. Like from here to here, this is what I'm doing.
I think part of it too is I am probably the poster child for do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm the guy that can tell you how to fix your credit. Does that mean
Okay.
my credit's immaculate? It's my credit's not, to be honest,
Yeah.
my credit's not bad. It's just not
Yeah.
like I don't have an 800, right?
Yeah.
I can tell you how to lose weight. I can tell
Hmm.
you how to fix your finances, save money. I can tell you how to do a lot of stuff. Does that mean I'm doing it? Right. So, and that's part of it too. I feel like sometimes I beat myself up because I'm not taking my own advice. Like I've given people my advice on like time management and how to break your day down into 15-minute increments and go back and fill out a time log and log exactly what you did every 15 minutes for a week just to see where your time's really going. And I'll give people these nuggets, like
Yeah.
this experience. And then I realize like I don't follow my own advice sometimes. Like, man, and then again back to the feeling like a phony or a hypocrite, right? Because you're like,
Hmm.
what am I doing? I know how to do this.
Hmm.
And I had got into a thing here, oh, I don't know, about 6 months ago, where I really started getting into reading a lot of
Yeah.
stoicism,
So
and really,
Seneca, Marcus
yeah,
Aurelius. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
Marcus Aurelius, How to Think Like a Roman Empire Emperor. Really, that mindset really clicked with me. Like I thought, man, all this time I'm a Stoic and I didn't even know it. Trying to use the mind over matter, mentally flip a switch in your head. Like I'm not going to let this bother me. Flipping the switch, like the power of the human mind and habits, how easy it is for bad habits to catch on and how hard it is to get used to good habits, and immediate gratification versus waiting things out, and having patience for the good things. You eat healthy, and in the long run, it works out good. You eat garbage, it tastes really good right now, but in the short term, you get the benefit, but in the long term, it's killing your body,
So I'd
right?
like to plant a seed right here. There is no rule that says eating good doesn't taste good.
Yeah, well, that's something I've learned too. Even I don't know if I told you this when we talked last week about me doing the keto thing, right?
Yeah.
So I started doing keto, which is pretty common, I guess, with keto, is because of the cutting out carbohydrates for the most part. You lose water weight, so you get a pretty fast return on your investment with
Yeah.
as far as weight loss, right? You could like drop 10 pounds the first week or two.
Weak. Yeah.
Yeah, just for water weight. And I saw pretty good results. And about the time I was getting in the habit, which you know how it is. Your eating habits start at the grocery store.
Yeah.
If you don't put it in your cart, you don't bring it home. The Oreos aren't in the cupboard. You're not going to eat the Oreos at home.
Yeah.
But if you put them in the cart and you take it home, there's eventually you're going to be eating those Pop Tarts or those stupid things you should be eating.
For
So the
sure.
first battle of the war is to win the battle with the grocery cart. Make sure you have the right stuff around you, the healthy stuff, which can be tough, especially if you're trying to live healthy, because typically healthy means fresh, which means more trips more often to the store, which means more temptation while at the store when you're strolling past the bakery department to
Yeah.
grab the apple turnovers, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's all this weird big chess game between you and your brain and your habits,
And willpower.
and willpower. You have a crappy day,
The
you feel bad
willpower
on
is less.
yourself, and you know
Yeah.
what? I'm a nice person. I deserve an apple turnover. And then all that sugar and all those carbs and all the calories, and it kicks you out of ketosis.
Yeah.
And then for 2 days, you're trying to get back in ketosis, and now you feel icky because your body's looking for carbs, and the whole pattern. It's like you are trying to juggle all these different things. Like, I
So
want my
that's a
health over
question I
here.
did want to ask you though. While you were doing keto though, how did your brain feel? How did you think it affected your thoughts and your energy
Um,
levels and all that?
I've heard people, I've heard different other people reviews and comments about doing it to where they felt like they're studying and there was more clarity and things like that. And once you're ketosis and your body starts using the ketones and looking for fat for fuels, it's like rocket fuel. And a lot of people even say they have more energy. I would say, number one, when you have extra weight on you and you lose weight and your clothes start fitting a little better, it emotionally or whatever makes you feel
Psychological,
better.
yeah.
Psychologically makes you feel better. Like, hey, look, hey, I had to add a new belt loop on my belt, right? I actually did. I had to cut a hole in my belt loop to give myself an extra loop
Yeah.
or an extra hole, right?
Hmm.
And those things are like, yeah, that's right. I'm doing it, right? So there were times where I felt like, wow, this is actually working, and I don't feel bad or anything. I don't feel crappy, but I did notice that some of the, and maybe they were pre diabetic type symptoms that were fading away that I didn't realize I had. But I used to, when I worked for AT&T, there was times I had to drive in my truck for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And by the time I parked and got out, when I put my feet hit the ground, I felt like somebody had hit me in the feet with hammers. Like I felt
Mhm.
every bone in my each
Yeah.
foot like just ached.
Yeah.
And I noticed when I was doing the keto and I was getting off the carbs, and I'm sure it was because of the less the
Inflammation.
anti-inflammatories,
Yeah.
yeah, that I didn't feel that anymore. You still have to make sure you're hydrated, and then your salt intake and things like that, because electrolytes and salt,
Yeah.
you're gonna wash a lot of that out without the water retention and all that stuff. So there's a balance to it. I felt like I slept better. I noticed that I wasn't getting sick. Like usually about once a year, I get some kind of like a bronchitis or sinus infection. I do have allergies and
You
things,
don't
but
want
this
one.
time,
You don't want that right now.
yeah. Well,
Do what you got
I
to do to stay healthy right now.
yeah, and I know it's all interrelated, interconnected to your immune system and things like that. And I am allergic to mold and pollen, so like this time of year,
Yeah.
right, tree pollen especially.
The
But
spring.
I used to work for the phone company, and I climbed telephone poles. I was up in the branches sometimes in between, trying to run wire and stuff. Crawled under houses, and trust me, there is mold under houses. And I felt like once I got in that pattern and I developed that new habit and that new daily routine, like, okay, bacon and eggs and a bulletproof coffee for breakfast, water, Lunch, if I didn't pack a lunch and I had to go through somewhere, I could go through Wendy's and get a hamburger or a piece of chicken with an avocado, keep it simple,
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't realize, they think, oh, you're eating fat to lose weight. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But fat is
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
filling,
Yep.
and
So
you
you
can
eat
eat
less.
less. You
Yeah.
eat less, hit enough fats, and all of a sudden you're like, your stomach's like, I'm good. So as long as I could make it through the day and get home, and then I was trying to incorporate the intermittent fasting kind of in there, where,
So what was
okay,
your window that you were trying to use?
that was the tough part, because when you go to work, if you try to eat breakfast, so you have something, so you don't attempt to eat the garbage, the window was, don't eat until after 2 p.m.
Okay.
and then eat anything I eat, but don't eat anything later than 8 p.m. I think it was 2 to 8.
So yeah, two
So
to eight.
basically,
There's
yeah, I would skip breakfast, have a bulletproof
or
coffee.
18 hours. Yeah.
So coffee with a little MCT oil and a pat of butter. Okay. And a little bit of liquid stevia, because I can't do the black coffee. Sorry. I got to have something in there. That oil, the MCT oil and the butter, would kind of help me feel a little full. And then I would try to prolong taking lunch until, like, as long as I could wait.
So how did that make you feel taking the bulletproof? Like how were your energy
Um,
levels?
it wasn't bad, because, to be honest, I've always been the kind of person my whole life where I usually skip breakfast. I used to have stomach issues as a kid, and when I first get up in the morning, I just didn't. It just never felt right to have food on my stomach.
Yeah.
But come around lunchtime, 11:30, 12 o'clock, my stomach's like, So I felt like with the bulletproof coffee and getting a little bit of that MCT oil and the butter in there, that helped at least curb that a little bit. And then I tried to start drinking more water, to where when I did start getting to where my stomach was growling, I would just try to keep prolonging it by drinking more water. Then 2 o'clock come around. If I had packed the lunch, I started making chaffles. You take a little waffle iron and you mix its egg with whatever. It could be tuna, salmon, just broccoli and cauliflower, whatever you want to put in it, and cheese. And you mix it all up, almost make a batter, and you put them on the waffle iron and you press them into these little, like, waffles. And then you can eat them all through the day. I can eat them cold, whatever.
Yeah.
And they can be whatever you want to be in them, as long as they're, keto friendly stuff, right? So it's not a perfectly clean keto, but it's definitely better than a cheeseburger on a bun with ketchup and stuff.
Yeah.
So chaffles. And then, at night you get the little craving for, like, snacking, a handful of almonds, pork rinds.
And they're
Yeah,
good.
that's one.
Like one of my go-to keto snacks is pork rinds with avocado. Just
Yeah.
they just go good, so good
Avocado
together.
is avocado. I wish, man, uh, they just getting them, the timing on
Yeah.
avocados. It always frustrates. It's like you get them, it's like, oh, this one's not ready yet. And then you put it to the side. And then a few days later, you go to use it. You're like, I missed the window, you
So
know?
I have a suggestion for you.
Yeah.
Maybe a day, maybe or two before they're ready, put them in the refrigerator. And
Okay.
that kind of just halts them right there.
Really? Mm.
Yes. And that's, I buy avocados when they're on sale. I'll buy the whole bunch. Wait till they're where I like them, throw them in the refrigerator.
Oh, okay.
And that holds them longer.
Is there a way? Because I know it seems like once you cut them open and take them, they start to bruise like a banana, right? They start to
Yeah.
go
Well,
brown.
once you cut it open, just take it down.
Yeah.
Just take
I
it
mean,
down.
dude, I'll put sliced avocado, like, in a lettuce wrap or whatever, and I'll just straight up eat them.
Yeah.
I love even
And
guacamole.
avocados are a lot more versatile than people give them credit for, because you can put them in a smoothie, you can put them in a shake, you can make them
I
sweet,
made
savory, you can do all types of things with them.
I made chocolate cookies
Yeah.
with avocados. It was just straight up avocado. You add the cocoa and the sweetener or whatever, and you literally bake them in the oven, and they look like a chocolate chip cookie kind of thing. And it was avocado. That's what it was. There was no flour or nothing in it.
So yeah, the
Yeah.
avocados are the
They
keto master.
Yeah, it really is. I also eat. I know it grosses some people out, but I eat smoked oysters in a
That'll do
can.
good things for your libido.
Yeah, I thought it was raw
And
oysters.
they're very nutrient dense oysters.
Nothing
Like,
better than a good libido during the
you know,
lockdown. The canned ones. I mean, vitamin D, omega 3s and stuff. You got to be careful though, because most of them are in cottonseed oil, which is not the
yeah.
best oil to have, right? But I think they're tasty. And when I'm getting that craving late at night, where I feel like, man, I just kind of want to eat something, can of sardines or can of smoked oysters, and that protein, it just seems like it kind of goes right in your stomach. Like, okay,
Hmm.
I'm good. Drink some water, go to bed. So I think a lot of it is getting a plan, finding substitutions and alternatives, like if you like potatoes and mashed potatoes. Well, it takes a little experimentation, but
Cauliflower mash.
cauliflower,
Yeah.
get it to where you puree it up,
Yeah. With some coconut
and
milk
you
in
can
it. Mm-hmm.
make it a
And you
little
can get it at a
more.
good consistency for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because then, and even like I know sour cream's technically it's supposed to be kind of okay for keto, but even for people in general trying to do like a low fat diet or something, plain yogurt is similar in consistency to sour cream. And if you're eating a baked potato, which I know in
Yeah.
keto you wouldn't be, if you're making chicken tacos or something, little dab of
It's like sour
plain
cream. Yeah.
yogurt and that texture and consistency, you don't really think about it because then you get the salsa and the cheese and different stuff and you're eating it, and in your brain it's like, oh, I still have my sour cream. So that was the good stuff about keto.
Yeah.
The bad part was when I started doing the coaching job and working remote pre-COVID, right? Found myself in a very sedentary. So between doing my schoolwork on the computer and doing my coaching job on a computer, and then I would go to Aldi's or something and I would find myself picking up a box of Pop Tarts or
Mm.
the trail mix. Like, oh my gosh, there was this one trail mix they have. It's got dehydrated cherries with chunks of like the salty dark chocolate, cashews, and all this
Yeah.
stuff is obviously horrible for you for keto, but just tastes. It's that
So
sweet
good.
salty thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
so good. And I would have it. I think, oh well, every once in a while, if I just eat a little pinch of this or whatever. Right.
Well, the
You
thing is
open
that
that,
that's going
man.
to get the hypoglycemia going, which is going to make you hungrier and
Yeah.
make you want more.
And if you're sitting here preoccupied and you keep reaching for a handful, you turn around twice and you've eaten a whole bag of it.
Well,
So you probably had enough
I'm going to plant
calories.
another seed for you here.
Okay.
You never want a carb load for a desk job.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. I
So
trust
write
me.
that down somewhere. So next time you want to
I
grab it when you're sitting there, be
write
like,
this down. Yeah.
unless I'm going to go do some sprints later
Yeah.
or
No,
something where
I knew when I was doing it, it was wrong.
Mhm.
I knew when I had a box of Pop Tarts sitting over here
Yeah.
off the camera that at any time, because what would happen is I would be hungry, and instead of stopping what I'm doing and going downstairs and finding a can of tuna fish or something, whatever, I would eat a Pop Tart.
So I have
And if you know anything about Pop Tarts,
yeah,
there's no nutritional value in a Pop
no,
Tart. It's all
whatsoever.
carbs and sugar. It's nothing good.
So what it sounds like you just said in a different type of way, in a different perspective was, or because you didn't have the practice on those days of going to the kitchen and being mindful, practicing mindfulness about what you're eating, you default to mindlessness, which is just
Yep.
the first thing you can grab.
And it goes back even further than that. Like I was talking about before, the first battle was at the grocery store when I put those Pop Tarts in the cart, and then you get to this point where you start to feel guilty. And then you're just like, what does it matter at this point? I've already screwed up. And then instead of putting a box of Pop Tarts in your cart, you put two boxes of Pop Tarts. Because
Because they were buy one, get one.
what? Well, yeah. What happens when I run out of the first ones? Right, then I'm out of Pop Tarts, and I'm not going to come all the way back to the store. So then you start slipping away from the good habits that you've built up to, and then you find yourself slid right back into. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, just mashed potatoes is fine.
Yeah.
Oh, a little bit of rice ain't going to hurt me. Oh, these are, instead of chicken tenders, these are breaded chicken tenders, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And all those things, those different ways of coping with how to find food to eat, when you're like, well, as long as there's no breading, no sauce on the side, unless it's this or this, right? If it's salad, that's fine if I use blue cheese, because there's hardly any carbs in blue cheese, but I
Yeah.
don't use ranch. And all these
Yeah.
different little check marks and rules you make, and all of a sudden, once you fall off the wagon, it's like anything goes. It's like, it doesn't matter. I'm ice cream, sure. Let me do some ice cream. And he turned around twice in the 30 pounds that I had lost in keto.
From my
32
side, you
pounds.
not only do you not even look like you're 47, you look younger than that. Your
Well,
demeanor is definitely younger than that, but you don't look like you're in the 250s or 40s or 30s.
yeah,
You look now
I
you
got
look
I
less
got the
than that.
dad bod going there. And I've had people tell me that too. They're like, hey, you look like you've taken care of yourself. And I would have never guessed you to be 260 or something. And it'd be different if I was, 6'3", right? I'm
Yeah.
5'9".
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
5'9", and currently probably about 250 something. And it's a perfect example of why I look at my scenario and I'm like, man, am I squandering I mean, I don't want to say genetics. I'm not saying we have good genetics, but on my dad's side, we naturally have like I have 17-inch calves. I have friends that have worked out their entire life and they have chicken legs and they would kill to have 17-inch calves. And mine are like, they're just there. It's not like run up steps 100 times a day or something. They're
So
just genetically there.
you say you're living in Ohio,
Columbus, Ohio.
but West Side Barbell is one of the meccas of powerlifting.
Oh yeah.
So if you wanted to surround yourself with some people
Yeah.
that'll get you
I never got
motivated.
in. I never got into. I hurt my left rotor cuff
Yeah.
in high school for wrestling. West Side Barbell,
Hmm.
Columbus. Yeah,
Go
they're.
there. I have not been there yet. Now, I don't have a power lifter's body, but I'll walk in there and do what I can.
Yeah.
But if you
Well,
have a power lifter
once they
body,
open, once they
yeah,
open back up,
yeah,
I haven't done that. But like I've told people before, like they're like, well, I'm 165 pounds, and if you're 260, you're obviously in the obese category. It's like, man, if I lost 100 pounds to be 160, I would look
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
a Halloween costume. You know what I mean? These are my shoulders, no
Yeah,
matter what I do. Like in an apartment or places you go, or even a hotel. Do you ever like you're stiff or you're sore and you just want to take a hot bath, right?
yeah,
Epsom salt,
yeah,
oils, whatever the heck you want to, whatever you use. And if I would go in one of those little apartment type shower / bathtub things, I fill up the bathtub, and when I went to go to lay back, my shoulders go on the sides. It's
yeah.
like
Like,
I am
you get stuck.
wide enough.
Yeah,
I can't. I'm like squeezed in. I'm in the tub like this just to
yeah,
fit. Even in my best fitness days of my life. Oh man, I guess I was in my late 20s, mid to late 20s, and I was taking a kickboxing class, and
yeah,
just the cardio from that kickboxing class. And you've probably seen this before, right? You have people that they either want to see results too quickly,
yeah,
or they go with the program, and all of a sudden one day they're like, I looked in the mirror and I realized, it's like, what is that? It's like, are those my abs? You know what I'm saying? It's like sometimes people, it sneaks up on them to where they don't realize it, and they see an old picture of themselves and a current picture, and they're like, holy crap, this is what I really look like. This is what I look like now. And they're so used to seeing that face in the mirror or that body in the mirror, that when that body or your face starts to change, they don't recognize it.
yeah,
I go back on my YouTube channel and see some older videos, and my face, I can see it in my face. I've got
yeah.
the
The jaw.
swelling, right?
Yeah,
The jowl. Yeah. Then I'd look at a newer video, and I was like, wow, I can actually see it. I can see my cheekbones. I can see my jawline more, different things. And I use an analogy too when I talk to people about coding. When people are learning to code, you kind of have to give yourself these small victories. And I'm not talking about participation trophies, but I mean, you really have to give yourself credit for when you make progress, because you can't beat yourself up for not making progress fast enough. But if you have those tiny little trophies on that shelf behind you, and just remember that, okay, maybe you had a bad week, maybe you slipped up, you went to somebody's birthday party, or had a couple drinks or something, it was New Year's Eve, or had a piece of birthday cake or something. You can recover from that. Think about how you feel now compared to a week or two ago, how your clothes are fitting, how you feel, your complexion, your skin, you haven't been sick. Think about all those positive little trophies, and it's okay to give yourself a little
yeah,
pat on the back
for
that you
sure.
bettered yourself, instead of beating yourself up so bad for messing up. And I think it's the same thing with coding. I talk to people that have been trying to learn for a couple months, and they're thinking about going to a boot camp, but they don't feel like they've learned enough yet. And it's like, I'll ask them, like, have you done some HTML? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Have you done some CSS? Yeah. Working on JavaScript? Yeah, I'm learning JavaScript right now. It's tough, but I'm learning it. Have you done any projects or anything? Well, I put together this little web page thing, and it's not the greatest. I'm like, 3 weeks ago, what did you know about any of this? Oh,
Yeah,
nothing. It's like, look what you've done.
that's it.
Yeah, it's beginner stuff, but it's still, look what you have accomplished just over 2 or 3 weeks that you never knew anything about a month ago. There was a lady, I want to call her a girl because she's so energetic and nice and stuff. I think of her as a girl, not a
Yeah,
lady, right?
not a,
I mean,
yeah,
Keisha Lake. They did a podcast with her. They did a YouTube video with her. A year ago, she had no idea what JavaScript was. She'd heard about learning to code and stuff like that. She went to boot camp. She did like a full-time, kind of a fast 5 months in your face type thing. Last December, she got a job. working remote. She lives in Atlanta, but she got a remote job working for Stitch Fix, the company, the app
Yeah.
with the clothings and stuff,
Yeah.
making like almost $100,000 for her first job. A year ago, she was working as a receptionist at a clinic or something. Never even knew what JavaScript was. So when I meet these people that have this initiative and they really want to better themselves and they really want to change their life, that's one thing I've always said, like, you can't expect your life to change. You have to be a big motivator in that happening. You're not going to wake up Monday morning and the luck fairy has showed up and just waved this little wand, and all of a sudden now everything's right, and your health is better and your financial situation is better. It's like you have to recognize what can be changed and what can't be changed, right? Even like the old what is the
Yeah.
besmudge the Alcoholics Anonymous motto thing, but
Yes.
have to know the power to change what you can, and
The wisdom
whatever.
to know the difference between them both.
Yes, to me, and just based on what I've read and know, that sounds a lot like a very stoic
Yeah.
thought to me, right? That's what I think attracted me to learning more about stoicism and things. Is I have a brother who stresses over everything. If he doesn't have an ulcer, he's working on one, right? And I try to tell him, hey man, there's nothing you can do about that. You can plan for the worst, hope for the best, all that stuff. You can try to be prepared. You can try to whatever. But to sit here and stress and worry and get yourself upset about what could possibly maybe happen, you're giving yourself the negative effects of that happening without it even possibly happening. If it happens, that's terrible. But if it doesn't happen, you just gave yourself 50% of the damage.
Yeah, from the
By
hormonal
thinking about it.
cascade that you gave yourself,
Yeah,
from the raising of the cortisol, the losing of good sleep,
yeah,
it makes you want to eat
blood
worse, and
pressure,
then the
everything.
dominoes keep tick, tick, tick,
Yep.
falling.
And I think a lot of, if there was ever going to be somebody to like crack the secret code, right, of what to make yourself the happiest or the best person you can be in life and everything, I think some of that mentality is definitely part of it. We're all on this big spinning rock in the middle of infinity.
In the middle of
You're only
infinity.
you're only here for so long. Yeah,
In this form, because the
in this
energy goes on.
right. Every energy never stops. I
The
understand
energy
that.
goes on.
Your relationships with the people around you, and a lot of times the relationships that you choose to have. Interesting. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and my dad worked in a steel mill, and we lived in a neighborhood of other like-minded people that were, blue collar families, whether it be the steel mill, mostly the railroad, those industry type things.
Yes.
There was a part of town where some of the kids, where their families had, they owned the businesses and were doctors and lawyers and things. Every town's got that, right? You get the certain part of town where I don't want to say the rich kids live, but the people that are doing a little bit better. And we lived in a straight up neighborhood, like the row houses sitting side by side. My dad worked in a steel mill for 22 years. He actually bought a house right down in front of the mill, where he literally walked out the front door and walked about 3 blocks right into the gates of the mill. And when the steel mill went under, I don't know, I think it was like 50,000 people progressively throughout the whole industry lost their jobs. So it wasn't like, hey, this one company over here went under. The entire industry of what kept the entire
Sector.
valley. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole
So
sector.
there were people that got out of Dodge. They loaded up the family. They moved to Texas
Detroit,
or Arizona or
Michigan,
wherever the jobs were,
wherever
right?
the blue collar jobs are. Yeah.
And you have a lot of thick family ties with a lot of the ethnic European immigrant type families, the Italians and the Croatians, Slovaks and Hungarians, and people that are family. Like you don't move away from your parents, right? Some of them you even live in the same house, like right, New York,
Yeah.
New Jersey. People,
That's how
there's
we
like
are
3
in Latin
generations.
type
Yeah,
of.
yeah,
We're very
yeah.
much similar.
You got 3 generations, 4 generations, sometimes living in the same house, right?
Yeah.
Like with our situation, my dad had invested so much time and blood, sweat, and tears and stuff in the house and moving there in his job. And he just assumed my brothers and I would all end up working the steel mill too and all this stuff. He refused to abandon it. It wasn't anything great, but it was his.
Yeah.
And
Well,
unfortunately,
he worked for it.
he
worked for
turned
that
to, like a lot of people did, he turned to alcohol.
thing. Yeah.
So he's already a drinker anyway, but he really went further with alcohol. And he had the opportunity, just like anybody pretty much does, more or less, to pack up and get out, but he chose not to. And he was my age, actually a couple years younger than I am right now when all this happened. And I can't imagine at my age right now just giving up. I
Yeah.
can't imagine living out the rest of my life and not having tried something else, tried to better myself, whether it's better myself mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, just to stop, game over, unplug it, turn it off, sit back and just wait it out. Right. He passed away last July. He actually made it to 79. He had a birthday on a Friday and died the next Tuesday, the day before 4th of July.
Wow.
Smoker, drinker, on oxygen, had strokes, emphysema. It just used to make me sad to think of how he never really tried to educate himself, better himself. It was almost like he had just paused his life at a certain point where his high life of his life, at a certain point in his life, this was what he attained, and he was proud of him and wanted to be, his happy time. Watch football on Sunday.
Yeah.
Go work your jobs, go fishing every once in a while. Simple life. Me personally, I just can't, I can't sit still. Like, I feel like I have to constantly be like my Audible, my
Yeah.
Audible library is just like, I got
Yeah.
so much stuff. And it's
I
all
could
over the place too.
I should probably cancel my my membership because
For a
I
while, you end
have,
up with
well,
credits.
because I have so many credits and so many
Yeah,
books that I haven't gotten to. So,
I did that before.
uh,
I stopped mine for a while and then waited till I used all the credits and then signed back up again. Yeah. That's actually probably not a bad idea,
yeah.
especially now when
Now,
you
right
probably
now,
use that.
yeah, I've been
You can
thinking
use that
about it.
extra $12 a month.
Yeah.
Audible's great though, because you can be driving around listening. You could be at the gym listening. You could be mowing the grass listening. I even listen to some stuff and fall asleep at night. I feel like if you immerse yourself, if you are wanting to get into technology, if you're wanting to lose weight, if you're wanting to quit smoking, if you're wanting to get detox your body, I think those topical uh, uh, subjects, those topics, if you're surrounding yourself with stuff more, if the last thing you hear when you're falling asleep at night is a discussion about diet, nutrition, things like that, I think those are things that subconsciously are going to be more on your mind, and you're even going to dream about stuff, right?
Hmm.
Whereas if you fill yourself with garbage, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Netflix and, even the Disney Channel or the Disney streaming and Amazon Prime Video and all that. There's some great stuff out there.
Yeah.
Uh,
No,
and,
there's
and
no
you don't
lack
always
of
have to
good
be,
content. That's for
yeah.
sure.
And being entertained does not always require you to be educated, right? So you don't have
Yeah.
to actually learn anything to be entertained. Sometimes you just need to laugh or
Yeah,
cry,
for
right?
sure.
A lot of it is being open-minded enough to realize that there's always room to grow. Even if you've got a good job and you're making good money and your family and you're happy, married, kids, I still feel like there's always room for improvement of something.
Always.
Or if nothing else, keeping in practice, keep your
Yeah.
knife sharp.
Well,
So,
we're dynamic beings, and there's a concept that, to echo off what you were saying on immersing yourself in something,
mhm.
and to connect what we were saying earlier about how the brain works. There's four stages of competency. Have you ever heard of the four stages of competency?
Uh-uh.
So the first stage is basically you are unconsciously incompetent, which means you don't know that you don't know, right? So
Right. Sure.
it's not even on your radar. The second stage is you are now consciously incompetent, that you realize you don't know, and then it's up to you to decide, do I want to become competent in this thing or not? Which is where you
Mhm.
need to begin the immersion of whatever it is you want to get good at.
Right.
Once you decide, okay, I want to immerse myself in that, you get to the third stage where eventually you are consciously competent.
Hmm.
But your brain, because it's a pattern machine, wants to get to the point where it is unconsciously competent, where it can do it so efficiently that it doesn't even really need to think about it.
That makes a lot of sense.
And you have a lot of competencies from what we were saying here today. You got to focus on one of them at a time until they become unconsciously competent, and then
Hmm.
you go to the other one. As for like your keto story, there also needs to be a break. I'm going to do keto, tomorrow is May. On May 1st, I start.
Hmm.
On Memorial Weekend, which is at the end of May, you know what? I'm going to celebrate that I did all this and that I built a better habit. And I'm going to have my cake, whatever, for that weekend. When I work with clients, I always try to give them an end to something. I don't say, oh,
Yeah.
let's just do this. And when that end comes, we celebrate. Because I think when I was on your call the other day for the coding or for the JavaScript, that we spoke about allowing yourself to be in kindergarten. And that's echoing what you said earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
That when you mess up, it's much better if you think about it like, oh, I'm learning something. I'm supposed to mess up. And the analogy I like to give is, if a kindergartner walks into the room and starts singing the ABCs wrong, would we be upset at them? And for the most part, we wouldn't, because they're learning something. So if
Right.
they came in and started singing A, B, D, and we're like, oh, no, no, that's not the way it is. It's actually like this. We'd actually start singing with them.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did we point out that there was a mistake, but we pointed it out with a positive reinforcement, like, oh, you know, you're trying to
Yeah.
figure it out, and this is the way. And if you keep doing it, you're going to get it, and you will become unconsciously competent on your alphabet, which will then lead to the next step of whatever you can do. So from what I'm hearing here, you have a lot of those things in place. It's just about focusing on
Mm-hmm.
trying to get, and then committing, like putting it down in the calendar and saying, you know, from this time to this time, this is what it is.
It's funny. It's funny you said that, because I was just telling my sister the other day. I'm like, you know, if I could just go mark it on the calendar, just go 2 weeks and eat eggs and bacon and breakfast,
Yeah.
and make sure I do this and this, and only eat this, and salmon and Brussels sprouts and all the stuff I like to eat anyway.
Yeah.
And just put a little time on it, like 2 weeks. That's all. Just got to make it for 2 weeks,
That's it.
and no carbs, no potatoes, no whatever. I'm like, that's probably all I need to just get the jump started again. You know,
Yeah.
pop the clutch, get the car started again.
You know what you
It
might want to
just,
try?
what's
The
up?
autoimmune protocol. See, so now you did keto, there's infinity amounts of things you can try, and you never
Mm-hmm.
know how your body is going to respond to them. When I try to talk to my clients and say, okay, we're going to do this, I try to plant the seeds of, this is a science experiment, and if we want
Mm-hmm.
this experiment to come out correctly, we got to see it through. And you know, try to plant the seeds of curiosity of, how's this going to even turn out. It will turn out like something. It will turn out, and you will
Well,
learn something. I have literally read volumes of research, and exercise is the one thing that comes over and over. You want to lower your probabilities of Alzheimer's? Do exercise. You want to lower
mm-hmm.
your probabilities of having diabetes? Do exercise. You want to lower your probabilities of having cardiovascular disease? Do exercise. Exercise literally is the number one tool that anybody can use.
They were saying even people that are like trying to recover from COVID, and I'm not saying go out there, try to do 45 minutes on the elliptical when
No,
you come, but
but you little by little, you build yourself up. You don't
mhm,
accept that, oh, my lungs just got destroyed by this disease. Maybe I should just lay down and do nothing the rest of my life. You can do
mhm.
that. Again, you have the option and choice to do
Sure.
whatever you want.
I knew a guy, or I guess technically I still know him. I haven't talked to him for years, but so my brother's first marriage, his father-in-law, his family, anyway,
Mm,
he's part Native American, or he's pretty good percentage Native American, and his genetically, his dad's side, they had typically the males didn't make it past 55 with heart conditions for some reason. His dad, his uncles, whatever. So he was getting closer to, or he was around that age. We used to go play basketball a lot, and he was hilarious. He's a shorter little guy, but he had this little fade little hook shot that he would do. He would step back and do this little hook with his arm, and he would hit it so often. And we'd be playing on this court, and we had these guys that were like 6'3", 6'4", sometimes big dudes, towering guys. And he would come up, and they would come in on him, and he would do that little step back and that little hook. And they would get so mad because they're just like, this little guy, I should be able to just come up and just bury this guy, right?
mm,
And his
He's
name's
got
Jerry.
style.
So he's just a trip. Well, there's a bunch of us. I have family, distant cousins that have land down further south in Oklahoma, and people would go down there different weekends. A bunch of people come down and ride motorcycles. They had a lot of gravel roads, stuff. They have strip pits and different things. It was just a thing to go cook out and whatever. People bring their bikes, and it was just a community thing. It was like probably 12, 14 guys riding their bikes. I wasn't there that weekend. My brother was there, and Jerry was riding. He hadn't been riding a motorcycle too much recently, and it was a young kid that was like a teenager who was just kind of getting used to being new at it. So they pull up to a crossroads in gravel. It kicks up all this gravel dust, so you can't see. And everybody goes like left. Well, Jerry pulls up to this intersection, and before he doesn't know which direction to go, he's listening for the bikes to see which one, waiting for the gravel dust to come down. And this other kid comes flying up behind him, sees him at the last second, tries to stop, slides his bike, slams it into his bike, and smashes Jerry's leg in between the two bikes. So destroys his leg, like the peg of the side on the side, right into it. So they go get a truck, throw Jerry in the back of the truck, and the closest hospital down there is Fort Smith, Arkansas, which is like not even close, right? They take him all the way there. Fort Smith takes a look at him. They try to, to patch him up, whatever. They can't do it. They can't do much for him. So they life fight him all the way back to Tulsa.
Yeah.
He has 7 surgeries. They end up taking his leg off below the knee, about this far below the knee. 3 weeks after this. Now, keep in mind, he's Native American mostly, so he got an Indian card. He can use the Indian hospital.
Yeah.
He's waiting on and getting a prosthetic leg made. He shows up. My brothers and I went to play par 3 golf. Jerry shows up. He wants to play.
Yeah.
He hops out of the car. He takes a cardboard box for a printer, like says Epson or HP or something on it. We get a golf cart, and we played par 3, and he would put his stump down on this box and play. He beat 2 of us. Okay. Then the story gets better, I promise. He goes to, there's a pawn shop, and there's a leg hanging in the window, and it says some spiel like, we'll pawn anything, right? There's a leg, like a prosthetic leg hanging in the window. So he goes in there and he asks the guy, how much for the leg? And the guy goes, oh man, that's just like, kind of a gimmick, like, hey, we'll pawn anything, right? He goes, well, can I try it on? The guy goes, sure. And from what I understand, prosthetics are custom fit,
they're
right?
custom. Yeah.
Right. He tries this on, and it apparently was close enough of a fit. He says, I want it. How much? And the guy, I don't know if he gave it to him cheap. I don't know. He goes and he's playing basketball with a prosthetic leg he got at a pawn shop, wearing a tennis shoe on the end of it, while he's waiting on his custom one to do. And because of his playing style, he's sitting there limping and wobbling around, dribbling the basketball.
Trying to figure it out.
People would come up at him, and he would step back and do that little hook. And I'm telling you what, that guy, if that isn't a perfect example of the whole never give up, and he eventually got the custom prosthetic and stuff like that. And as far as I know, last I heard, he still plays basketball and does different stuff. He had to sell his motorcycle.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, half of the guys in that group that were down there after that happened that day, their wives and whatever, half of them probably ended up selling motorcycles. And I'm just sharing that story because I know the guy firsthand. I know it's a true story. It's just it's like you can't make that stuff up. And I feel like, what are all the other options he could have done?
Well, he could have practiced not persevering.
He could have sat there and felt sorry for himself.
Yeah.
He could have had somebody else roll him around in a wheelchair. I mean, and I'm not saying that people that are out there being pushed around in a wheelchair, that
we don't know
not
everybody's story, but
right.
He
but
didn't
with
use
this
it as an
particular
excuse.
person, he could have had plenty of excuses. Jerry would be a good guy to get on a podcast.
Yeah, well, you tell him I'm ready to interview him whenever he's
I
ready.
haven't talked to him in years, but I think my brother still talks to him. I'll see what I can do.
I would love to hear that story of that much perseverance. I think that's a good place to end it, because what better to end this podcast on than the message of perseverance?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I enjoy talking about good, positive things with anybody, because if anything, it helps me clarify my own center, where I'm at and how I look at things, and knowing that there's other people that share, like-minded thoughts about positivity and things like that. Makes me realize that I'm not just making stuff up in my head. So, I used to end, when I was doing my YouTube videos, I used to end, do something nice for somebody, say something nice to somebody. And then I went a while where I wasn't doing videos, and I realized I did a couple videos and I forgot to say that. And then I started saying it again at the end. But it's almost like there are certain things that are obvious, but you still sometimes need a reminder. Like even saying please and thank you. Yeah. They become a habit, and you say it, and then sometimes you realize, like, oh, you know what? I haven't been saying thank you to people or whatever. It's like sometimes you just need those little reminders. And I think keeping this stuff, these kind of discussions going, or a mental reminder, you could be a good person and try to be a good person, but sometimes you have to be kind of reminded
Yeah, for
to
sure.
keep to why you're doing
You
it and
have
keep
to
doing it.
build the habit. So with that,
Yeah.
so yeah, remember what he just said, and I'm going to end it with thank you for sharing your time and attention with me, because time and attention is the greatest gift we can give to each other. So with that, until the next episode of WEYT, we'll see you on the flip side. Peace.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.